Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the session. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning session. My name is Viola Raheb, as you have noticed, and I have the pleasure of being the curator of this conference. Today we're focusing on the issue of education, and André Hella just mentioned that 51% of all refugees are children. And in 2013, the UNHCR said that there are 65 million young people between the age of 12 to 15 years old who are being denied the right to an education, in addition to 59 million children who do not have access to primary education. 25 million of them are children who live in conflict zones. Darf ich mein beweglicher Mikro haben, bitte? We would like not only to start talking on education of children on the run, but to give them a face and a name and a story. And please welcome with me Mustafa, originally from Afghanistan, a 15-year-old young man who's in Austria since about a year and a half. Welcome, Mustafa. Ahlan wa sahlan. Herzlich willkommen. Mustafa, du bist seit etwa 1,5 Jahren.
You have been living in Austria for about 18 months. You come from Afghanistan and have moved to Austria by Iran. Now, what was your education in Afghanistan and Iran? Can you tell us something about that? First of all, hello, and I wish you a pleasant good morning. And well, I come from Afghanistan, but everybody, of course, comes from somewhere. People who come from to Europe don't come just for fun. Nobody likes to leave their home country, so I'm not here just for the heck of it. We all also have had problems in my homeland, and I had to leave. Did you attend a school in Iran or Afghanistan? No, I did not attend a proper school in Iran. I did have a kind of a mosque school in Afghanistan, so you had no regular education in Afghanistan, just a bit of literacy at the mosque. And you could not attend school in Iran. Why was that so? Well, whenever I see policemen here, I'm nervous because it was even worse in Afghanistan and Iran, because I didn't have papers. I didn't have papers, no official ID, and I was not able, therefore, to attend school for 6 months. And now you are attending a middle school in Kopfstraße, 12th district, and you are now being tutored by Team for Teach for Austria. How do you feel attending school today? Well, it's great because I'm learning so many things. I hope I will become not a good Afghani, but a good Austrian one day. We hope that with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, is focusing on the MENAT region, and it's not by pure chance. With the outbreak of the Syrian conflict, every second Syrian is either on the run or has become a refugee. And the situation of children is dramatic, would be even not even a description of the situation. 3.7 million Syrian children were born after the outbreak of the conflict. And 2.4 million are living in the neighboring countries, which is almost half of the Syrians living in the MENAT region. And every second child in Syria today does not have access to education, whether within Syria or within the neighboring countries or on the run. Please welcome with me this morning a panel of experts from the MENAT region. And I would like to give the first floor to Ms. Catherine Barnett from UNICEF, who has launched a program under the title No Lost Generation. And I quote from the website, "Against all odds, children and youth are not giving up on their dreams and aspirations." Are we giving up on them, Mrs. Barnett? Please.
Thank you very much indeed. And just let me start by saying how excited all of my colleagues in UNICEF are about this conversation and having an entire conference focusing on children in this crisis. Normally, we battle to have just one tiny corner of the conversation about children, but I think we've got the balance right. As everybody has said, we're talking about half of the affected population, and we're talking about the future. And so going forwards, our ambition would be that this isn't a one-off conversation, but we find some useful directions forward as a coalition of allies in this important endeavour. So are we giving up on the children? It's a good question. Absolutely not. And one of the reasons why we started this initiative of No Lost Generation, which is bigger than UNICEF and comprises a number of UN agencies and NGOs, is because we really needed to radically reshape the way we look at the Syria crisis. In 2013, this was treated as a normal humanitarian situation. The so-called basic needs of clean water, access to shelter, food, that kind of thing were prioritized. The whole response was really geared towards a kind of a set of short-term solutions and not particularly child-focused. And it was quite an exciting thing to see a number of the big Western donors, but then increasingly a coalition of operational partners, and then wonderfully the refugee hosting countries in the region come together and say, no, this is a protracted crisis. It's first and foremost a crisis affecting children. The strategic thing here is to think about the long term and to ensure that we don't drop the ball on education for children. And that's when we saw that the funding for education, which traditionally we found it out when we did a study in the UN in 2012, is the least funded sector of humanitarian response. We saw the figures for funding of education really improve, and the same is true for child protection, which is a second pillar of No Lost Generation, and for investment in adolescent and youth and positive engagement opportunities like volunteering in their communities, vocational training, that kind of thing. So we really managed to turn the response on its head and change this out of a traditional humanitarian short-term response into something which is more like an investment in the future. I want to say a few words about what the whole situation is across the region for education, and then drill down a little bit into what we're doing specifically on education as a responding community. Actually, despite the financial crisis in 2008, remarkably, in the Middle East and North Africa region, access to education was improving. And there's a wonderful graph that shows this incremental improvement, which is a testament to the commitment of the countries in the region to really getting that right. And then the Syria crisis happened, and now the clock has been turned back, and we're in the same position that we were in 2008. So it's really the Syria crisis has decimated the progress on education in the region. So what are we doing about it? Well, the reason our initiative, No Lost Generation, has not just one pillar, education, but 3 pillars, including child protection and positive engagement opportunities for adolescents and youth, is because you can't have one without the other. The reason children are not in school is because over 80% of the affected population from the Syria crisis is now living in abject poverty. Families can't survive. There are negative coping mechanisms like child labor. There is certainly a gender aspect in there. There's increasing, alarming levels of child marriage, particularly affecting girls. And then we see all kinds of issues around social cohesion, children starting off in school, but then feeling that they don't fit, they're too distressed, they're carrying too much psychosocial baggage with them, there's discrimination and often violence in school or on the way to school, or even just the fear of violence. So we use a sort of multi-pronged approach to addressing the access issue, trying to use cash grants for families to enable them to move away from child labor and the other negative coping mechanisms, but at the same time providing teacher training, ensuring that the support is there for children to thrive in school, and of course dealing with the nuts and bolts, the school supplies, the extra classrooms, the school construction. 1 in 3 schools inside Syria has been destroyed or is out of action because it's occupied or used for a military purpose or another reason. So really it's a sort of a whole raft of approaches that we're using to try and solve the access issue. We're also working with partners on quality because obviously those 2 things go hand in hand, and making sure that we can improve learning outcomes and measure that improvement. I'll close by just saying that one of the silver linings to this cloud, if I can call it that, is the innovation that we're seeing. And for example, there's an amazing UNRWA initiative that links classrooms in Europe with classrooms inside Syria and in the refugee hosting countries. There are self-learning mechanisms that allow children to learn even if they're in a tent without access to a classroom. And UNICEF itself is now responding in Austria and appealing for funds to try and work with the Syrian children so that we're following them along their journey inside Syria, in the refugee hosting countries in the region, and inside Austria, with a whole range of measures, again, focusing not just on education, but on child protection and strengthening the national system. So there are opportunities for us to do our work better and to learn lessons.
Thank you so much. You've mentioned the region, and I think one of the things that we would like to shed light on, if we are talking in Europe on Syrian refugees coming from the neighboring countries, we have to realize that their educational background, whether they have been educated in Syria or in Turkey or in Jordan or in Lebanon, does make a huge difference. Not only where they come from, but also which school did they visit or not visit during their stay in the region. I will give the floor next to Ms. Lale Hazar from Turkey. And Turkey has almost 3 million Syrian refugees living, a huge number of children among them, and you're one of the organizations calling and trying to get some support for them to be integrated into the Turkish schools.
Yes, thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Viola. I would like to thank you, especially the people who have put their hearts in this conference, in establishing this conference and uniting all of us on such an important issue now in our 21st century. Now, I am here on behalf of my organization called Positive Behavior and Intervention Supports, in Turkish Odgeder. Yes, 6 years ago we started Turkey getting Syrian refugees, and most of them were firstly placed in refugee camps. I would like to give a little bit of a number. There are at the moment 255,000 Syrian refugees in camps out of 3 million. We know that it's more, but the registered ones are around 2,800,000. And the rest are in urban areas. And sheltering and education are the most common problems. So this is a project on social cohesion towards an inclusive education. Syrian urban refugee children successfully access Turkish public education. Our main area is on social cohesion. Secondly, overcoming language barriers. And thirdly, civil rights and juvenile justice. We're working in one of the most dense districts in Istanbul on the Asian side, which is called Sultanbeyli. There are nearly 40,000 Syrian refugees, and 5,500 of them are between the ages of 6 and 18, which is K-12. Unfortunately, around 55% do not attend schools. There are two systems at the moment going on in Turkey. One of them is the temporary education centers. The government has put the Syrian refugee children in temporary education centers when the first flow started. And now, within the academic year of 2016 and 2017, Turkish government has a new regulation. Like every child at the age of 6, it is compulsory in Turkey to attend primary and middle school education. Education is compulsory for 8 years in Turkey. Now the Syrian refugee children have the right of the compulsory education. So this year in Sultanbeyli, there are 20% students who entered schools, and the rest are still in temporary education centers where the curriculum is in Syrian and the language is also Arabic. That's why we would like to draw and encourage and motivate the Syrian refugee children and their parents to come to the schools. So let me very briefly talk about our project. Our project addresses the needs of Syrian refugee children in Turkish national education system and their social, emotional, behavioral growth, as well as their academic achievement. This is a unique project in Turkey and maybe in the entire region. Not only does it serve the emotional, social, and academic progress of Syrian refugee children, but also the children's and parents' integration into Turkish society. The school-related project benefits also to reach the Turkish host community, enhancing peaceful coexistence instead of extra tensions in urban neighborhoods with high refugee densities. Project foresees the needs of establishing a positive school climate, which is positive, safe, and enjoyable in the 3 Turkish public schools in Sultanbeyli in order to improve the well-being and coexistence of 2 communities, to live together, to cooperate in harmony by means of positive behavior and intervention support. The focus is on the trauma, of course. Okay, I have 1 minute. And which was experienced by Syrian refugee children and any problematic areas and antisocial behaviors and depressions. Whereas all Turkish children suffer from anxiety a lot because we have a very different system. There are 2 mass exams, level exams in order to enter the university. So this is a whole school approach that holds the parents, the teachers, and the students regarding all the stakeholders of the education. This is actually a preventive mental health school policy program where we train the teachers to be skillful in regard with the problematic areas in the schools, on mutual values that are established both with the Syrian and the Turkish students, with the school community, with the teachers, faculty, staff, and with the principals, even the safeguards at the doors, up to the support staff. Our project is for a year. This is a pilot project. And the Ministry of Istanbul Education sees this project as a specific and an example for Istanbul. And if we can succeed, and hopefully we will, this will be disseminated in the other public schools of Istanbul. And then later, an example to the whole region, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Lale. You just addressed very quickly the issue of curricula. And allow me just to make a note. I just finished my doctoral thesis on the various curriculas used among Syrian school children within Syria and outside of Syria. And it was astonishing to see that after 6 months of the start of the Syrian crisis, already so many groups had worked on developing new school textbooks, total curricula from grade 1 until grade 2. And in almost all of these curriculas, the narrative of Syria is being changed in order to recruit people to be part of the ideology the group that has formed the curricula wants them to be. And I think this is not being tackled enough at the moment, and we hope that we will be able to continue working on this work. The region has been talked about. Turkey does has a totally different situation. Yes, I'm sorry. Turkey does have a different situation because of the barrier of language. That was the case why in Turkey the majority of the new curriculums developed for Syrians were introduced mostly in Turkey. We have Thaera from Lebanon. Lebanon is hosting more than 1.2 million Syrian refugees, and we're all mentioning, by the way, only the official numbers. The unofficials are actually not known. Lebanon does have a history of integrating refugees within schools, especially with the experience of Palestinian refugees since '48. I know you've worked on that, but there are new challenges arising with the number of Syrian refugees and especially children coming to Lebanon. Thaera, the floor is yours.
So, good morning. My name is Thaera Badran, and I work for the Center for Lebanese Studies in Beirut. I will talk about the education of Syrian refugees in Lebanon. First, I will talk about education in general in Lebanon. Then I will talk about the challenges facing Syrian refugees in Lebanon. And finally, I will end up with the good practice that can be shared. So education in Lebanon, as Mr. Matar, the mayor of Sahel, Zahrani from Lebanon, he mentioned, there is around, let's say, less than half of the population in Lebanon, it's Syrians, around 30% of the population. 400,000 school-age children, more than half of them still do not go to school, and yet, of course, the second half go to school. In Lebanon, most of the children, Lebanese children, they go to private schools. Parents are not encouraged to send them to public schools due to the weak circumstances of the public schools. So only 90% of the school-age children in primary level, they go to public schools, which means the public schools are almost empty. And yet, only 30% of the Syrian refugees are enrolled in schools. I will talk about that later. The curriculum in Lebanon, so math and science is taught in English or French, which is one of the challenges that the Syrian refugee children they face. And yet, Syrian children, they want to go to school. Their parents want to send them to school, but we see the enrollment is still low. 30%, as I mentioned, in primary level, but in the secondary level, it's only 2%. So the challenges, they are many. While Lebanon has opened its public schools to Syrian refugee students, the way in which education is organized is problematic. Most Syrians, they go to afternoon shifts. Lebanon has opened its public schools, but most of them, they go to second shift in the afternoon. And you can imagine a child start his school at 1 o'clock and come back home at around 6, which is not a normal routine for school, for a child and even for an adult. Another problem is segregation, of course, because in the afternoon shifts there are only Syrians. Another challenge is the discrepancy in curriculum. In Syria, the Syrian children, they are used to have all subjects in Arabic. They arrive to Lebanon and they have to face this problem of language, which is a big obstacle to their learning. When they arrive, the Syrian children, they are placed in schools according to their age and not according to their abilities. Another challenge is, which is for all children, it's lack of resources at schools. For example, in Europe, we know there are some welcoming classes that facilitate the integration of the child in the school. Such classes do not exist in Lebanon, with other lack of resources like equipments of classes. Another challenge that face the Syrian children and leads to the low enrollment is the laws concerning residency. Parents cannot enroll their children unless they have residency, and there is problem in that because it's costly, and also the Syrians need Lebanese sponsor in order to get the residency, and most of the people are not willing to sponsor Syrian with all the problems they come with, of course. Another challenge is the attitude of teachers, of Lebanese teachers towards foreign language. There is bullying at school, discrimination. In the afternoon shifts, there are no extracurricular activities, no sports, no art. Breaks are barely like 10 minutes. They have breaks. Teachers, they are overloaded. Most of the teachers who teach in the morning shift, they teach also in the afternoon shift. So they have no energy, no time to join any teacher development programs that address language difficulties. Schools are not child-friendly. Many places, they are not well heated, especially in the cold Bekaa area and the north areas. So these are some of the challenges that I mentioned, not to mention also the security issues that they are facing. So the result is, as you can imagine, high dropouts in schools, high repetition rates, and low enrollment. On the other hand, a special case which is of interesting for comparison is the Palestinian refugees from Syria. When it comes to education, the Palestinian refugees from Syria, they are doing better. Their achievement is better. The enrollment is better. While we see there is only 30% of Syrians enrolled in school, in UNRWA school, the Palestinian refugees from Syria, there is 58%, and in secondary level, 30% compared to 2% of Syrians. And when we look at why, the reasons, integration. So their policies was targeted towards integrating the morning shifts with the afternoon shifts. And of course, like programs that were already going on in UNRWA, that address language difficulties, abilities, low abilities of children. So teacher development programs were already going on, and some remedial classes were going on, and the Syrians, they were incorporated into those programs, and the teachers, they continued their teacher development programs. I want to say that Lebanon should be commended, praised for the manner in which it has opened its schools and its country for the Syrians. And imagine, like in Austria, there is 2.5 million Syrians. If we compare the percentage in Lebanon, what will happen? So one recommendation, integration is very important to get in Lebanon. Schools should be integrated to get rid of the laws of residency and to be more open to language learning. I want just to finish my talk in a little story that I was told by a child that I met through my teaching and through our research. Several children, they work in the morning and they go to school in the afternoon, and they want to go to school. Their parents want to send them to schools, and despite all the difficulties they are facing. And the child, he knows he will be bullied. He knows that it's not easy, but still he wants to go to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Thaera, and we'll be coming to many of the issues that you have pointed to during the morning session, also when we come to social cohesion within our own classrooms within Europe. And thank you also for relating to what Catherine was saying, the example of the work of UNRWA does relate to what you were saying. There is, if we want to achieve any change, we need to work together with all the institutions who have also been working on integrating refugees around the globe in the last decades. We moved to Jordan, which is also a neighboring country to Syria, with a totally different situation when it comes to involving young Syrian children into school education. And Ms. Lina Farouqi from Jordan is from an organization who's trying to work concretely on integrating Syrian refugee children, but also on bringing a bridge between families and the local communities. Ms. Lina, the floor is yours.
Thank you for inviting us to such a great opportunity for MECI as total and MECI Jordan specific. I'm just going to talk a little bit about MECI because it is a new NGO or INGO in Jordan, but the growth, how we grow, and then what do we do in our programs. I'm the regional director of MECI, the Middle East Children Institute. MECI is a non-profit organization, a U.S. non-profit organization. Headquarters is in Switzerland. We started in 2005 and established by the founder is Mrs. Lola Grace Nashashibi Grace. And we started the program in 2007 in the West Bank, where we had 4 schools in a village in Ramallah. In 2013, we decided to start in Jordan. We established our institute in Jordan. And the initial part of working in that program was we have a grant from UNICEF for 3 schools. In 2014, with 1,000, we have educated 1,083 students. In 2015, we had 6 schools. Out of these 6 schools, 9 schools, 6 for UNICEF and 3 for UNESCO. And in 2016-17, we have 20 schools with UNICEF and 3 with Malala Fund. Our program is, thank you. Our program is, we started with informal education, those students who are out of school, and we found so many students out of school, have no education, never been to school, or barely being to school one semester or 2 semesters, and then out and staying at home for 1, 2, 3 years. We found that there's so many different ways of their education. Some students are really eager to get into school and get to know the importance of schools. Others are not, because also we have to say that the parents are different from one community to another. I have an example of one student who was really introvert and couldn't even talk, couldn't even doesn't know that he has to raise his hand to go to the bathroom. There's so many ways of this person have changed towards the end of the semester, where he was giving a poem at the graduation ceremony. What we do is we give them a pre-test to see where their level is, and then go on to put them in the right level, and in the middle of the semester we give them another midterm, and we see how their improvement, and then towards the end of the semester we give them another exam and see where do they stand. And these students have improved in 2015. 94% have improved from the time they started. We do give them also behavioral exams and see how they were before they start the program and after they start the program. 87% of these students have improved their behavior. These students are really coming in with a trauma. Their education, they could be very good students, but what they have gone through was so hard for them to express and improve their education. And what we do is we give them, in addition to the academic courses, Arabic, English, and math, we do give them and stress on psychosocial, which this is what we see that the students have improved when they take the art and PE classes, and we see how their improvement in that. We do give them awareness session for the parents as well as the students on what's the importance of education. And we see that the parents now are sending more of their students. The absenteeism at the beginning was much higher than now. Now we feel that most of the students eager to come. We have an example of one person who works at night from 2 o'clock in the morning till around 11 at the bakery. At 11, he goes back home, take a shower, get dressed, and come and take our course. And we see that whenever we finish 1 year and waiting for another program, his father is the one who's calling all the time, I want to start the program. We do social cohesion between the Jordanians and the Syrians, and we do for parents as well as for students. And we see that the more we do such events, the more the students are really integrating in the program, getting better, and working harder to get higher scores. And the most important is the cohesion between the Syrians and the Jordanians, which we didn't have before. Now it's in a much better way. The government of Jordan had opened this year another 100, in addition to the 98 schools, the double-shifted school. And so we see that more students are going with the initiative that UNICEF is going through, that learning for all. And this is what we are encouraging our students, is to go to formal education. The government is opening its doors to have as many as students they can have into the formal education, yet we have between 60 to 80,000 students out of school. That means that we really need to work much harder in getting programs for these students to be able to go into a regular education. We are working also right now on non-formal education, which means if students is out of schooling for 3 years, they have to, they won't be able to go to school. So we're working on a program with UNICEF and with the Ministry of Education to give them courses for 3 sessions. Each session is 8 months, and this will enable them to take an exam at the 10th grade, and then 11th and 12th, either they go back to school and home schooling, or going into vocational, which we encourage also more into going into vocational. So we need everybody to just get hand in hand to help these people to really to be able to get them into the education they need. They thrive to get the education. You see them that they taking chances of leaving their houses to come to school, but just to get the education we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We're talking about education, and again, Catherine said at the beginning, UNICEF is not working only on access to education, but also on childcare, going along with education. One of the issues that are essential for these young children who have gone through war, through trauma, through plight, is the psychosocial support that needs to be going hand in hand with education. And when we hear the number, we usually get shocked and say, how can we even try to introduce psychosocial support if we're talking about 1.5 million children being in Turkey? That's why we invited Ms. Camilla Ludi, an educational specialist working with a Norwegian Refugee Council in Gaza. And they have started a program called Ending Nightmares, which does not need really psychotherapist at the first instance, but they are making a great impact on the life of children in conflict, and you're planning to expand it to the region. The floor is yours, Ms. Lodi.
Thank you, Viola. Good morning to everybody. I'm an education specialist, and I have been working for the Norwegian Refugee Council for more than 10 years in a lot of different countries. In the past 2 years, I've been living and working in Palestine, and let me tell you that this is the most endearing program I've ever worked for. So my small contribution today is to present what we call the Better Learning Program. Better Learning Program was developed by Norwegian Refugee Council in collaboration with the University of Tromsø in Norway and the Norwegian Center for Violence and Traumatic Studies. The intervention was first tested in northern Uganda with child soldiers, and then it was piloted in Gaza for the first time in 2013. So the Better Learning Program is a school-based intervention which combines psychosocial and educational approaches. And this example fits both education in emergency contexts, such as Gaza. In Gaza, an 8-year-old child has lived throughout 3 wars. And in protracted conflicts, such as the West Bank, where in the last semester, in 2016, over 25,000 children experienced violence while in education settings. So, Better Learning Program consists of 2 different components. We have what we call the BLP1, which is, reaches out to basically all students inside classroom and provides psychoeducational and coping skills to children. This is a preventive tool which is administered by teachers. And then we have the second part, which is the BLP2, which is a specialized intervention for those who have chronic symptoms of traumatic stress. We work with children who have from 3 to 5 nightmares per week for a period of over 3 months, after which they cannot go back to sleep. And of course, this impairs their learning in schools. They fall asleep, they have violent reactions. So this, through a period of 2 months, master trainers train counselors and teachers, and basically through a narrative exposure therapy and drawings, the results are quite incredible. Now, there are several evaluation, research, studies that were carried out, and basically there is a lot of results-based evidence showing some of the main results. 2/3 of the children after this intervention go down to having 0 nightmares. The remaining 1/3 also goes drastically down. Across all children, it improves well-being, so children are less afraid they're calm, relaxed, they know how to react in stressed situation. There is an improved capacity to concentrate, to focus in schools, and the enjoyment of being in schools. And also there is a component where parents are made aware of the processes and what is happening to the children, and they're equipped with skills of self-care, of healing and support. So basically, Norwegian Refugee Council is now, has started up this type of intervention in Jordan, in Lebanon and in Turkey. And this is to say that in a fairly short period of time, with a fairly small budget, it is possible to really achieve incredible results, and it is possible for children to start dreaming again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As I'm a very strict moderator, we have some time for discussion. I would just like to welcome at this point all the children and young people who have been on the run and have arrived in Austria, who are part of our community today, but also the ones whom we have got to Vienna with the help of the GIZ in Germany. And may I ask all of you please to stand up, just that we have your faces for a moment. No. Welcome among us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. And we hope that we'll be walking with you the mile for a better tomorrow. Thank you so much. All what we've been hearing shows the dramatic challenge we are facing. But each one of the five women who have talked, and maybe it's not a pure chance that they are women, I'm not sure. You are doing so many things on the ground. So I would like to give you the possibility at the end to share with us one vision. If you were to be the minister responsible for humanitarian aid, what would be the one thing you would like to change regarding education of children in crisis times and on the run? And may I ask Thaera, would you start? Just give us one push where to go from here before we then start with the panel on Europe.
As a mayor of Austria, in Austria or Lebanon?
Beirut.
No,
As the next president.
Because Lebanon in itself, it needs support actually from outside. So
from your own situation, not Austria.
Okay, I will ask for support. Okay, I will cancel the laws concerning residency of Syrian as a prerequisite to register in the schools. I will integrate the Syrians in the morning shifts because there is a place I have seen. I will put more efforts in teachers' qualifications, send them more to teacher development programs that address the language difficulties and other learning difficulties. I will promote the culture of tolerance. And yeah, I think. Thank you.
Vale, please.
I agree with you. Well, yeah, if I would be the minister, let's say, I would put emphasis more on the teacher training, especially on prevention and intervention on the social, emotional growth of our children. And of course, the outcomes are so important, learning outcomes as well as social, emotional outcomes. So more emphasis on teachers who will raise new generations.
Well, I cannot not agree with what they have mentioned, definitely. I would give more the teachers, the Jordanian teachers, more information on child protection, how they deal with these students, trauma students. I will definitely integrate the Syrian with the Jordanian, not having the Jordanian in the morning and the Syrian in the afternoon. I will work more on the teachers' training in whole, you know, that how to deal with such situation. What are the needs of these students? Is it only the needs of education, or there are other things that is needed for these students, as well as for the Jordanians? Because this is when we give the Jordanian, the Syrian, we can also teach the Jordanian how to accept other nationalities. And the most important thing is really looking forward to have really qualified teachers. Thank you.
Such a difficult question. So there's a short answer. Put children in charge. They'll get it right. The longer answer, I'd say I want to be sneaky and have two. One, it's about safety. If schools are bombed, destroyed, if children are bullied, if children are in exploitative work conditions, all that means they're not in school and they can't learn. So it's about safety and child protection, keeping families together, not detaining them, as we see in Europe, getting rid of the xenophobia, combating attitudes. The second, it's about the quality of the education. I mean, as you've said, that we are growing the next society. And if we have rote learning, xenophobic curricula, I mean, as you said, curriculum is gold dust. Every politician wants their hands on the curriculum. We need proper citizenship learning, life skills about working in teams, about collaboration, about creativity, so that children are learning the right stuff in school. So put quality there too.
Okay, so after all of these important contributions, I would say that not only education is underfunded in humanitarian emergency, but also with all of the crises, unfortunately, there are forgotten crises. And here I go back to Palestine. I was working in Jordan for 2 years before going to Palestine, and we have to ensure sustainable funding in order not to find ourselves with interruption of funding to education programs in context of Gaza and West Bank, where the need is immense, still high. So I would focus on psychosocial in education in emergency as being an integrated part. There's a lot of work already going on. The Interagency for Network for Education in Emergency is doing tremendous work on this, but as a more constructive type of approach as to have it really integrated in education in emergencies.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you all for these valuable inputs. And I know for all our participants, we just tackled the edge of the theme in all of these countries, and also the issue of really the crisis in Syria, the war in Syria, and the future of millions of Syrian young refugees inside Syria, outside of Syria, on the run, and in Europe. I know so many questions are still open. Therefore, we have a workshop dedicated to education in the MENAT region in the afternoon, where we have invited 2 people from 2 organizations from Lebanon and from Egypt, from Cairo, to present a good practice example on school cohesion between refugee children, children of migrant background, but also socially deprived children. So if you would like to continue on this theme in the region, please do visit workshop number 1 following lunch. Now you all deserve a coffee break, our speakers too, before we bridge to Europe and how about social cohesion in our classroom. Thank you all for all the valuable input.